Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a comparison between the Microsoft Surface Pro X on the right and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 on the left. Now, you may have already noticed that I have the Samsung book cover keyboard case in the package. That's because I just got my replacement, which really does make these two tablets far more comparable than if this product is taken away. Because then you just have a tablet, no native keyboard, no native kickstand. That's what this accomplishes if you can get it to stay on. Granted, it is very expensive, but if, like me, you ordered it as part of the pre-order, it was only $90 instead of $100 and, is it $80? It's something ridiculous. All of that aside, these are very comparable devices in spite of the fact that the Pro X runs a full version of Windows 10 and the Tab S6, of course, runs Android, a mobile operating system. Still, very similar, because when we get into what's under the hood, yes, Microsoft did create a brand new chip through a cooperative with Qualcomm, the SQ1, whereas we have a Snapdragon 855, which is not a specific piece of hardware for the Tab S6, but rather something you'd find across the entire smartphone world. It's one of the most popular chips of 2019. 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. This is the higher end Tab S6 in terms of storage capacity. We do have expandable storage here. Here with the Pro X, we do not. So again, Snapdragon 855, Qualcomm SQ1, Microsoft's proprietary piece of hardware. They're silicone, but bear in mind, again, it is a Snapdragon processor at the end of the day, which means both of these are ARM devices. And even though the Pro X does run Windows 10, you will not be able to use any 64-bit architecture, which means that you will quickly be reminded that this is not a full-blown traditional computer, an x86 computer. It's only capable of running 32-bit applications. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have more flexibility than the Tab S6, which again is based around the Android OS. However, battery life, portability, cost are all in favor of the Tab S6. And at the end of the day, once you realize that the Pro X is not going to be able to replace a real computer, a laptop, then I think even a stronger argument can be made for a traditional tablet. Now, from a pure tablet experience, in other words, just accessing your email, productivity applications, whether it's Office, whatever you decide to use. We're talking about things that can run on both of these. Of course, Samsung does have DeX built into here, into the Tab S6 to give you a desktop-like operating system experience, which is another thing that makes the Tab S6, I think, very comparable to the Pro X. They both will do a great job at, again, just accomplishing content consumption, general web browsing, and productivity software. Where the Pro X has an opportunity to differentiate itself, of course, is that it is running Windows 10. And unlike a traditional tablet, whether we're looking at the Tab S6 in this comparison, or something like the iPad Pro, yes, the iPad Pro has more apps, but again, it isn't a computer. But there's the catch. Neither is the Pro X. And that is because, as I've mentioned, you're not going to be able to run any and every piece of software because of the ARM processor under the hood. So until, or if and when, Windows 10 has the ability to accommodate the ARM platform in a 64-bit capacity, which will really take all of the developers emulating 64-bit, these two are going to live in the same sphere. And even though this may look different in just about every way, because it is running Windows 10, it is a Microsoft piece of hardware, it is really nice. I do appreciate the larger display. That almost is enough to make me inherently go towards the Pro X. But when we get to pricing, this is $999. Throw in the keyboard and, of course, the slim pen, you're now spending another $270. Here, as I mentioned, $729 for the Tab S6 that I have, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. So that's 256 gigs of storage, and this is expandable. There is a micro SD card slot on board. Here we have 128 gigs of storage at $999. So again, a starting price tablet only, $999 versus $730. And of course, there is a less expensive Tab S6. Also, remember, even though this is a 10.5-inch display and this is a 13-inch display, we have a Super AMOLED on the left, and we have a traditional IPS LCD on the right. I will pick OLED every single time over an IPS display. Granted, again, I would like to have the 13-inch size. I wouldn't do it unless I was getting a tangible, true advantage. And between the pricing of this and the fact that we're running Windows 10, I really wish Microsoft would have given us a dual boot capability. Then this might be the device to rule them all. Instead, it seems like just a starting point for Microsoft because so many other PC makers, Samsung notably one of them, as well as there are several others, have been making ARM-based Windows machines at very affordable prices. This, on the other hand, gives us an option for an ARM-based Windows machine that is more expensive than competing laptops. So that's why I think this comparison is more than relevant. And if you haven't put it together already, I will pick the Tab S6 every time over this machine, and that is based on pricing. Not that I can do something with the Tab S6 that I can't do with the Pro X or vice versa. It's literally based on pricing. Now, if this wasn't an ARM-based machine, this comparison would be less valid because, of course, you would be able to run every piece of software, and inherently, I would pick the Pro X every day of the week. But being that it is ARM-based, being that it does have limitations inside of the Windows 10 operating system, I'm going to come back to the Tab S6. Lighter, again, better battery life. I mean, here you're lucky to get 9 hours. Here, you're not lucky to get 9 hours. You do better than that. Standby in these machines also is a little bit bizarre because here it does very well for a Windows 10 driven experience, but it still does not come close to touching the standby of the Tab S6. It just doesn't get near it. In fact, the Lenovo C940 does a better job in many ways of dealing with standby than the Surface Pro X, which makes no sense because we do have an ARM chip here, and that's exactly what Microsoft was shooting for, to give us all of that feel of using our smartphone, the convenience, the instant on, the nearly all-day battery life, but you don't get it with the Pro X. You just do still get it with the Tab S6. So I think the Tab S6 is getting overlooked by a lot of consumers, and it shouldn't be. And if I were to compare this, of course, to the iPad Pro, which is really what Microsoft is shooting at here with the I almost called it a tab, with the Surface Pro X, I would probably be more inclined to go with the Pro X over the iPad Pro. In spite of the iPad Pro having a wide span of software, it's still nowhere near to being a PC replacement. I mean, it doesn't even have a mouse. Jeez Louise. This has it all. I mean, it's got a good keyboard, a little bit of flex when it's magnetically attached. The pen, very good, this new Slim pen. I really like it a lot. Overall, better than the existing Surface pen, in my opinion. It charges, of course, slotted in here. You see it charging right now. With the Tab S6, we've got a pen too, and that's another reason this is such a comparable review. And the pen experience actually on the Tab S6, I prefer, by the way. Not to make anybody's head pop, but I do. I really like the experience on the Tab S6. And overall, the screen is superior on the Tab S6, even though it's lower resolution. So again, comparing this to the iPad Pro, I would pick this every day because they are similar in pricing when you go with a comparable model to this. But again, the reason I'm comparing it to the Tab S6 is because when it comes to pricing, these are not similar. And I feel that you can do everything that you want on the Tab S6 that you're going to be able to get accomplished. Now, I don't mean every single thing. Every user is an individual case scenario where there are things that are going to run in Windows that are not going to run inside of Android. And that's why I wish this was a dual boot machine, because then this comparison would be done. I wouldn't even be making the comparison. I would be saying the Pro X is the new king of the hill. Although I would still think the price is a lot. Even if it was dual boot, I still feel this should be competing with this in terms of price point. Make the starting price point under $700 for this same configuration of 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, and all of a sudden I think you have a showstopper with dual boot. Without dual boot, you're still trying to pitch this to a market that already is vested either in Apple or Samsung for their mobile tablet experience. And you're only going to get users that absolutely must have Windows. And that's, again, users that understand what they're going to be able to do with Windows on ARM. And that just becomes far too segmented. If you make this a dual boot machine, which Microsoft has the ability to do, after all, they're now partnering with Google on the Duo smartphone coming out basically a year from now, roughly December 2020. This is a killer device. And if that's what Microsoft does next time around, Surface Pro X will be the tablet to own in 2020. No question about it. The second generation of the Pro X will make anything Samsung, anything Apple does look like old news, because all of a sudden you've got a form factor, build quality, and flexibility on the software side that no one else can offer. Windows and Android in one machine, battery life and mobility with the LTE on board, which, by the way, this doesn't have. That would make the Pro X something to behold. Because Microsoft got it right with the build quality, they got it right with the design, they got it right with the keyboard, they got it right with the pen. All we're missing is pricing and dual boot. You do that, this stuff all goes away. There's no comparison anymore. And that is what I hope to see. I mean, even if I include the accessory of the keyboard cover, as I said, 180 retail, but 90, we're still flirting with, $800 and change here, $1,300. And even if you have an EDU discount for 10%, this is still, in my opinion, the better option, again, unless you know that you absolutely have to have access to some Windows programs that 32-bit versions do exist that clearly can't be accomplished inside Android or Apple, even if I'm willing to give them favor. But again, against the iPad Pro, I'll pick this every time because it's as expensive. But I'd rather have a Windows machine, even if it can only run 32-bit applications, because that's closer to being a PC than, convincing yourself that the iPad Pro is so powerful when it's really just a content consumption machine with a lot of software sold to users to try to make it more than that. And it's polished, don't get me wrong. This is the better option, though. You want to save some money, you still want to have a tablet that will do everything a tablet should. Samsung's delivered on that. And DeX is great. And I know I didn't give a lot of examples, but hopefully you're getting it from what I'm sharing in terms of understanding, knowledge, and experience with both of these devices. I like the Pro X a lot, but again, give it dual boot, give it a lower price point, and Microsoft has hit it out of the park. In the meantime, Tab S6 is going to get my money every single time, and I will recommend that to all of you if, again, you're looking for a tablet with all-day battery life, great standby, great pen input, and that is at an appropriate price point. I mean, I used to think this was expensive. Not till this hit the block. This is Microsoft's fruit offering. And it is better, in my opinion, in just about every way. It just needs a lower price, as I keep saying. And if you give us dual boot, even better. Lower price is a good starting point. And I think we'll see that very soon with this on sale. But I hope all of you gain something out of this comparison. Again, both are good devices. This is the better device between price, performance, and I think longevity. I think we're going to see a new Pro X revamped very quickly, and these are going to go on sale very quickly. Tab S6 has already been on sale once, and this is a flop. I mean, compared to Microsoft's keyboard type cover pen combo, this is a piece of crap for its price point. But if you get it to stay, you've emulated this whole experience, and I'll probably revisit it once I get this attached. But I just want to share this video today. Hope you all enjoyed. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. I got to go walk the puppy. Please feel free to subscribe. Later.